Welcome in, everybody. My name is Delaney McWalters. I'm the marketing strategist here at Synergy Wellness Center, and I get to have cool conversations with different members of our staff and community. And one of those is happening today with one of our yoga teachers, Julie Cedrone. She has a really great series currently happening right now, but we also just thought it would be great to do a little get to know her conversation as she is on our schedule regularly. So Julie, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yes, hi there. I'm so glad to be here. I'm Julie Cedrone. I've been practicing yoga for over 25 years in all different forms, starting with the Shivananda spiritual tradition, hot yoga, power yoga, prenatal yoga, gentle, yin, and everything in between. My other professional job is I've always been a chaplain, and I've worked a lot with death and dying and ministry. So I have felt that tending to the entire mind, body, and soul is what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, that's something that makes you kind of unique, is that, a lot of yoga teachers, do it part-time or in their free time or whatever, and have other jobs, but the fact that yours, I don't know, I feel like it very closely aligns in a lot of ways.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I feel like yoga is more of a lifestyle and a way of living than, something I do for 1 hour every day. Working with people on their breath is probably the most important thing I can do. The word breath in the scriptures is the same word for life, which I think is so beautiful and so telling, that all we have ultimately is our breath. So if we can work on our breath and how we are in our body and learn how to navigate and control how we breathe and find ways to be calm and centered, we can take that skill with us everywhere. So that's at the heart of spirituality, and it's at the heart of yoga as well. I mean, it's at the heart of most religious traditions. There is some kind of breath work or meditation work where you focus on your breathing and your spirit and learn how to connect with it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really beautiful the way that you just put that. What kind of tell me a little bit about your yoga journey. Like, what drew you to yoga in the first place? When did you start practicing, and what made you want to ultimately get your teaching certification?
Yeah, I was doing a chaplaincy residency training at the University of California in San Francisco, which was super high stressed. We had to stay at the hospital overnight, 1 or 2 nights a week, and deal with the emergency room, trauma, any death that happened in the hospital, psych unit. I mean, we could be called anywhere. And on the next block from the university hospital was this crazy colored painted Victorian, and it was called the Shivananda Yoga Center. And it had been in San Francisco since like 1890, like one of the very first yoga centers in the United States. So I would walk by and I thought, I'll check that out. And then it became my practice on the way home from work to go to the Shivananda Center and practice yoga there. I mean, that had a very set practice of 26 asanas that were always the same. We drank tea at the end. There was incense. It was definitely yoga as spiritual practice to go inward. But that was essential to get me through such hard work, and essential to get me through a year of really hard chaplaincy work where I had to be with people in their moment of crisis. I had to learn how to be centered and in my body myself in order to help other people be present and centered while they were going through times of distress. So I was in my mid-20s when I started that, and I never stopped. Like, it's sort of like brushing my teeth. I can't imagine a day without doing some form of yoga.
Yeah, and what came up for me as you were talking is this idea of like a moving meditation. I think that's something that I'm experiencing a lot in my own practice right now, is this, I think for some of us, the idea of meditation is really overwhelming because it involves like this stillness and quieting the mind. And of course, that's sort of impossible, right? Unless you have reached some sort of enlightenment. But this idea, like when you're saying like the 26 vinyasas, like this moving meditation of like the repetition and engaging the body to bring calm to it.
Yes. I think realistically for many of us, we find stillness inside when we move our body, when we move on the outside. I mean, there are some people who can sit and be completely still in their body and be completely still in their mind and heart. But I don't think that's true for most of us. I think many of us are wiggly and need to move and are not still on the inside unless we're expressing it through our physical form. So that's what I liked about that form of yoga. It was the same 26 posture, so it was predictable and your body just learned to go through those motions. So I actually think of yoga as a moving prayer or a body prayer, really. And you just sort of go through the ritual of movement and your body learns to do what it needs to do to get through that. So yeah, I started with that kind of yoga and I've tried many different other kinds. I didn't become a certified teacher until probably five years ago. Actually, I didn't, and it was totally an accident, if you want to know the truth. I was like looking online at Common Ground Yoga. I mean, I had done all this research on yoga training programs for a million years. I have 3 kids, I have a lot of other stuff going on, but I'd always wanted to be a yoga teacher. And I was investigating the website and there was something that I thought said click for more information, but it was actually like click to do this. And I was, oh, and my credit card's already in their system. Okay, I guess I put a deposit in. I'm going to do it. So I did my training in that 2019, 2020. So it ended in the pandemic, which was a little odd. Forced us to be creative. But once I started the training, I said, this is it. Like this brings it all together and integrates everything for me. Yeah. So I've been teaching for 5 years in some really different kinds of environments.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're talking about the predictability of the vinyasas too, like it must have been such like a nice relief when you were in such a unpredictable like work environment, and then to have the predictability. I find myself gravitating towards that as well within my own practice because anything can happen, the world's crazy, and so this like sometimes it's nice to like mix it up and not know what we're flowing to next, but there's also something to be said about that like repetitive flow that you were talking about. So that just jumped out for me.
You're right. The world is crazy. The world is crazy and chaotic, and it's nice to go to some place where you can be comforted and you can imagine how that will look. I think you're right.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this series that you're doing, Yoga and Spirituality. For some of us, yoga is a very like innately a very spiritual practice. For some of us, maybe we gravitate more towards the physical benefits, or maybe for some people it's a mix of both. Like tell me a bit about this series and kind of your vision for it.
Yeah, for me, yoga and spirituality are just so entwined. Like I can't imagine one really apart from the other. So as I've said, my other job, I've been a chaplain. Right now I'm serving as a pastor at a church. And I actually feel people sitting in churches are desperate to move their bodies. So I bring a little bit of yoga into a worship service. But when I teach a yoga class, often people want to engage more and engage more spiritually. So I had been finding after the end of a class, people would say, not knowing like the rest of my life, they would say, wow, that was spiritual. And I would be like, well, yeah. And I would be weaving in little bits of spiritual teachings just here and there. Nothing Christian or religious per se, but just bringing in a little bit of poetry. And I'd always have a theme: forgiveness, gratitude, self-love, breath, whatever it was. But there were spiritual themes. And more people wanted to go deeper into those themes. So I thought it would be comforting for people to just be out there about it. We're going to do yoga and spirituality. So the class I taught last week was about coming into the springtime. What is blossoming within you? Where are you finding renewal and growth in your life? So it was a yoga class, but we had some ritual and conversation at the beginning and at the end of the class, and a time for people to reflect on what was happening with their bodies and their spirits as they were moving, what's going on in their life right now. How does yoga enhance that practice? Where are they stuck? So I was just able to more freely verbalize some of the spiritual moments or questions that could be happening during a yoga practice. Yoga doesn't have to be silent. And I mean, I wanted to bring a little bit of conversation into it. And so the people that signed up knew that was going to happen and they wanted it. And they seemed receptive to that process in that way. I also feel like people come to yoga. Some people come to yoga wanting the community. So you're like kind of quiet together, moving, but you're in community. If you want to do yoga virtually at home, I mean, you still get a kind of community, but if you want to come in the studio and do it, often people want some connection. So I was just trying to give little bits of ways that people could connect together and form some relationships. There's often a few online students in my classes who never actually meet each other, but some of them actually met each other in person in that class, which was really nice.
Yeah, that's huge. I love, the time before a class or after a class to kind of chat with people around you and foster that sense of community is not to go unnoticed. And the thing that I love about doing yoga in person in a studio in particular is that it feeds my introverted sense of community, meaning like we're together doing the thing. It's almost like being at like a coffee shop, like you're with people, but you're not with people, like there's
Exactly.
this energy of people around and you're all kind of doing the same thing, but you don't have to like engage in conversation the whole time. It just like, it really feeds me in that way. So I can imagine, that happening for other folks as well.
That is just it. You can be an introvert and still be in community. And it's really lovely balance. And you can be a person who needs to move and do that, and a person who needs to think and feel. Like all of those things can happen in a yoga experience.
Yeah. So you talked a bit about, people that kind of want to be out there with, their spirituality, like they, it's part of their practice and maybe there's little hints of it here and there, but this is really more of like a conversation about it. I guess who do you think would benefit most from this series? Who do you really want to see show up? And maybe tell us a little bit about the next session of it.
Sure. I think anybody can benefit from the series. Somebody who's a complete beginner to yoga is able to be there. I go out of my way to give lots of options every step of the way and permission to do whatever your body, your heart needs to do. I think anybody who's looking to integrate their mind, body, and soul and to really work on that and think about that and feel their way through will be welcome to the class. I mean, it's not like there's big extroverted soul sharing. I mean, it's not like people are sharing a huge amount of information, but just a little, just a little bit. It's a great way to dabble into yoga and a great way to engage with some of the bigger questions in a way that is safe. So the series has been about springtime and blossoming into spring. So the first session I had a yoga sequence that started with really small. We were like little seeds and buds. And then we started to unfurl during the practice, ending with a big bright star pose and tree pose and postures about growth. And those were some of the questions. What is blossoming within you? The next two classes will continue with that, with the final class in June being all about brightness and bigness. So I found a series of poses for that one that are all about how does it feel to take up space and to shine and to be big? And there are some yoga postures that even include making noises, which we usually don't do all that often. But what does it mean to release and be big? For many of us, we don't like to take up room and we want to be small and little and have nobody notice us. But the practice of moving your body in a way so you take up a lot of room and even make noise is its own exercise. So I was imagining it over the course of 3 months, starting small, like winter happened, you garner all your energy, you're like a little seed. And then we just sort of start to unfurl a little bit by bit until we're really big and bright. What I believe about yoga is that every posture has a spiritual, an emotional, physical, and intellectual component to it. So if your body is like all curled up tiny, like you're in a little seed and you're protective and you're shielding all yourself, you can feel that in your heart and you can feel that in your mind, and your body's doing it. So I wanted to coordinate body, mind, and soul through that entire process and have people observe what it does for them and kind of see where they're most comfortable. There are plenty of people that are like in the seed all the time, but they don't want to. They want to grow. Most of us are not comfortable being a big, bright blossom, but something in us wants to be, and our purpose calls us to be bigger and fuller and the fullest expression of ourselves. But we have to learn how to get there. So my theory is that if we learn how to move our bodies in some different ways and mix up what we do and what shapes we're in, that helps our soul and our emotions and our mind follow suit. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that was great. Yeah, I was just like super engaged. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like for me, something that when I'm like hunched over at my desk or like on my phone or whatever, it's not, I've come to realize that it's not a coincidence that I feel small or not, living up to my full potential, or just sort of like dulled down in a sense. Whereas when I'm in something like a star pose or a goddess pose, or when I'm out walking with a friend, or when I'm having a conversation with someone and I'm like, my posture is kind of more open, like it's also not a coincidence that I just feel better. Like I just, and I think yoga like calls that out, right? It's like we're intentionally doing that, like to foster whatever feeling we're after within ourselves. So I really appreciate that.
I mean, at the very basic level, it's truly becoming aware of your body in that shape. Like the warrior poses, those are intended to help you feel like a warrior. That's a way to help you generate all your strength and say, I can do this. So I try to teach it to help people be aware, like, do you feel strong right now? Because when you're in Warrior One, you're intended to feel like, I can tackle this goal. And I think just by naming it and helping us really, really embody it, not just our physical body, but all the rest of us, it's just a huge spiritual growth and awareness experience.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say to somebody that thinks, maybe this is for me, but I'm a little hesitant to sign up, or I don't know, I'm a little, I guess just hesitant or whatever. How would we kind of call them in, I guess?
I would invite somebody to give it a try, and that it's a very safe space to be whoever you need to be, and that there are choices. And there are a whole, like the class I did last week, there were a whole range of people, some who are brand new to yoga and some who have been doing yoga for 30 years, all in that room. Every single one of our spiritual journeys are unique and they're all valid. And the shapes that we move our body in are our shapes. There's no one standard of perfection and no judging. I will say repeatedly in the class, there's no right or wrong. Nobody's looking at you. Do what you need to do, what feels most organic to you. So I try to create that tone, and I would encourage anybody that wanted to try that this is something that a total beginner could do. You just need a body, mind, and soul, and an openness to be aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. What other classes do you have on the Synergy schedule?
I teach every Friday morning at 10:30 a gentle yoga class. And those usually have they have a theme every week: forgiveness, renewal. They're not as overtly spiritual, but I do thematic classes.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So yeah, I guess if you are if this sounds like something that you're interested in, something that would benefit you or your practice, we invite you to join the next session of this 3-part series. And you could, drop into any of them, or if you came to the first one and you want to join all 3, that's awesome too, and encourage. The next one is May 9th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. And you can sign up via the Synergy website under the workshops tab. And it looks like the theme is April showers bring May flowers, which I feel like is very pertinent. Well, not so much. Today is a sunny day, but I feel like it's just been rainy and gray this first week of April that we're recording this. So feels pertinent.
We're ready for the May flowers, I think.
Yeah. I keep seeing like the little tulip, springs coming up, and I'm like, come on. But
It's so
anyway.
wet, cold. Yes.
Yeah. Julie, thank you for joining me today to talk a little bit about this. It was a nice way to start my day. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I'm just grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks again. And yeah, visit Synergy's website if you want to sign up for this series or any of Julie's Friday morning classes. So thanks so much.
Thank you.